She's so fine, hell of a, blows my mind.
What's good, guys? Today is Thursday, July 23rd, 2020, and I wanted to cover some of these shootings that have been happening in Chicago. I'm going to start with this one. It says, Girl 3 shot while riding in the back seat of father's SUV. It was wrote by Paige Fry, Rosemary Sobel, and Catherine Rosenberg Douglas, and it was in today's morning edition of the Chicago Tribune. A 3-year-old girl was in serious condition with a gunshot wound to the head following a shooting that happened as she rode in the back seat of an SUV after her father got into a dispute at a gas station early Wednesday in the South Shore neighborhood, Chicago police said. The girl was in the back seat of a white Chevrolet SUV when the shooting occurred at 12:45 a.m. in the 2400 block of East 74th Street, police said. Her parents told police they were driving when two men standing on the corner fired shots in their direction, hitting the child. Police viewed security footage from a gas station at 75th Street and Yates Boulevard that show the family had stopped there, where the father was involved in what appeared to be an, quote, illegal transaction, end quote, at one of the gas pumps with another man, according to a police report. During the transaction, there was a disagreement, and the father got a handgun from his SUV and chased down the man. In a joint news conference Wednesday morning about a mass shooting that left 15 people injured in Gresham Tuesday and the shooting of the little girl, Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown and Mayor Lori Lightfoot suggested the girl's parents are not fully cooperating with the police investigation. Quote, a 3-year-old in that back seat of her parents' car got shot after the father had an encounter with someone. By the grace of God, she is still with us, but she's in serious condition, end quote, Lightfoot said. Quote, and I urge the mother and father of that 3-year-old to cooperate to provide substantive information about what transpired at that gas station. That's the only way we're going to be able to make headway in that case, end quote, she said. After the shooting, the parents flagged down another driver who took them to Jackson Park Hospital, police said in a media notification. The girl was transferred to Comer Children's Hospital in serious condition. The girl had a bullet lodged in her forehead, the police report indicated. She suffered scratches to the eye, possibly from shattered glass, according to the authorities. It's unknown who was the target, police said. The girl's parents are not, quote, known to police, end quote, according to a media notification, which is police shorthand for saying that someone does not have a known criminal or arrest record. The police department's chief of detectives, Brendan Denahan, said thankfully the girl's condition was stabilized and she was talking. Quote, detectives have a long way to go in their investigation, and we're trying to get some more information on the mother and father. At this time, we don't have all the information we need. We're trying to gain more cooperation from them. What they were doing in that area, why they were out there at that time, and what exactly occurred, end quote, he said. The father's SUV was found in the 2200 block of East 73rd Street, according to the source. It had bullet holes, and there was blood in the back seat. Soon after the disagreement at the gas station, the city's gunshot monitoring system, ShotSpotter, notified police about 11 rounds fired in the 2400 block of East 74th Street, the source said. Shell casings were found on the sidewalk in the block. No arrests have been made. So I don't know what the answer to this is. I really don't. But, I mean, even with your 3-year-old child's life on the line, you still lie to police. Telling them that story about the shooting when you know good and daggone well that's not what happened. And what in the hell were you doing out at 12:45 with a 3-year-old? Doing some old shady business at the gas pump. I'm telling you, some people don't even need kids. That's pitiful. That's a sickening story. Moving on. This next story is about the mass shooting in Chicago. The name of the article is Top Cop, An Eye for an Eye Makes Us Both Blind. And here is a picture. It says Chicago police investigate the scene Tuesday of a mass shooting on 79th Street at Morgan Street. Police blame the shooting on an ongoing gang rivalry. Let's see if I can make it bigger. It's about as big as it's going to get. You can see the canopy from the funeral home there. It's brown or burgundy or whatever that is. This article was wrote by Peter Nikias, Jeremy Gorner, Paige Fry, and Megan Krepow from the Chicago Tribune. Constance Weatherby sat in her wheelchair outside Rhodes' funeral services on Tuesday night, too grief-stricken to go back in and see her nephew's body. A black car drove down 79th Street. A young man pointed a pistol out its window and opened fire, and she dove from her wheelchair, terrified. Round after round seemed to ricochet off the sidewalk. Quote, "I knew it was about my nephew," Weathersby said Wednesday morning, recalling the ordeal. "He died violently," end quote. She scraped both knees trying to shield her daughter from the gunfire, Weathersby said, and saw the shooter aim towards the street and continue firing. One bullet grazed her, cutting a trench along her side that she felt with her fingers before realizing she was shot. By the time the gunfire stopped, her nephew's funeral had become the site of Chicago's worst mass shooting in memory. Weathersby and at least 14 others were wounded in the attack. Police on Wednesday blamed the Gresham neighborhood shooting on an ongoing gang rivalry. Weathersby's nephew, Donnie, had been fatally shot in Inglewood the week before, a slaying that itself was related to a prior shooting, police said. My bad. Not police shooting. I wanted to add a note there that Donnie was killed on 7/14/2020, and he was shot at 74th and Stewart. It's just a little tidbit there. Quote, "The cycle of violence in Chicago. Someone gets shot, which prompts someone else to pick up a gun. This same cycle repeats itself over and over and over again. This cycle is fueled by street gangs, guns, and drugs," end quote. Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown said at a news conference at City Hall early Wednesday. Quote, "There is no comfort in revenge. None," Brown said. "Put your guns down. We can't keep meting out violence with violence. An eye for an eye makes us both blind," end quote. Attacks on funerals are common enough that police routinely maintain a presence near certain memorial services, and a cycle of retaliatory shootings has driven Chicago violence for years. So Tuesday's shooting stood out in this summer's massive wave of violence not for its circumstances, but for its sheer scale. Even in a city that has drawn national attention for its struggles, a shooting with so many casualties remains rare. Last year, 13 people were wounded, 4 of them critically, in a shooting inside a memorial gathering in the Inglewood neighborhood. And in September 2013, 13 people were shot in Cornell Square Park in the city's back-of-the-yards neighborhood, an incident that saw a 3-year-old boy wounded. Quote, "To the cowards behind these shootings," and cowards, I think, is the right word here, "we have to ask you to find your humanity," end quote, Mayor Lori Lightfoot said in a news conference Wednesday. Lightfoot noted that city residents experiencing trauma or grief can call 311 for city resources. Quote, "I woke up this morning even more resolved to do everything that we can to stop this violence. You heard me say this before. Violence is a symptom," she said. "A symptom of communities that are crying out. Young men who don't believe that they have a future other than being part of one of these gangs or factions or cliques. And we will not abandon our support and our continued determination to turn around their future and to end the pipeline that leads to these gangs to claim another young man, end quote. Chief of Detectives Brendan Denahan said police believe 3 people in the car were involved, 2 of whom were shooters. Some attendees at the funeral returned fire, police said, taking aim at the car that then turned north on Carpenter Street as the shooters continued sending a hail of bullets toward the funeral home. Funeral attendees could hear shots being fired toward them before the vehicle crashed midway down the block, according to police. Those inside the vehicle fled. Denahan said the car had been stolen. There were 60 fired cartridge casings left at the scene, police said, and 1 person was brought in for questioning. Constance Weathersby knows at least 3 of the people who were shot, saying she believes some were from a second visitation in the same funeral home. One of her relatives suffered a severed artery, another a shattered bone. One still has a bullet in her leg. Weathersby spent the night changing a bandage on her side. Blood soaked through her skirt and dried. But she declined to go to the hospital, saying she didn't want to take the chance of contracting COVID-19. The shooting produced such chaos, even getting an initial count of the wounded proved difficult. After initially saying there were at least 14 wounded, Chicago police gave an update early Wednesday that there were at least 15 people shot. Another man at the scene said he had been grazed by a bullet but had not sought medical attention. Tuesday night, at the scene of the attack, he stood near the crime scene tape with a fresh wound in his right knee. He said he was waiting in line to go inside the funeral home when the shooting started. As he ran, he realized he was grazed by a bullet, he said. He said he didn't tell police or paramedics he was hit because it was a minor injury, so he would not have been included in a victim count. That official count included 10 women, police said, ranging in age from 21 to 65. 5 men also were wounded, ranging in age from 22 to 38. Of the 15 victims, 1 was said to be in extremely critical condition, and a second one was in critical condition, according to police. Brown, in his remarks, pushed back on criticism from at least one activist that there should have been a more robust police presence at the funeral. He said the department was prepared for the potential of danger based on intelligence police received before the mass shooting, that there was a, quote, gang connection, end quote, involved. Quote, we had 2 police squad cars there, and we had a full tactical team in the area. And we treat all of our funerals that have any gang rivalry or gang connection in similar ways, end quote, he said. The Reverend Michael Fleger, the longtime pastor of St. Sabina Catholic Church, which is only a few blocks from the site of the mass shooting, said Wednesday the parish plans to offer a $15,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of suspects in the case. He pointed to gang problems, unemployment, and poverty in communities like Gresham that only exacerbate the violence problem in the area. Fleger also pointed to a fractured relationship between Chicago police and some residents in the area, making the community uneasy about approaching officers with information about violent incidents. Quote, why are we surprised people's anger is exploding like this? Fleger said. I think we've got to look at the perfect storm that's created in communities like this, end quote. Even before Tuesday's shooting, Chicago was reeling from a spike in shootings that has once again brought unwanted national attention. Donald Trump on Wednesday said he was sending in a, quote, surge, end quote, of federal agents to assist in quelling the violence. So far in 2020, Chicago has experienced one of the most violent years in decades. Through Sunday, homicides in Chicago were up 51%, with 414, compared with 275 at the same time last year, official CPD statistics show. Shootings were also up by nearly half. During a 28-day period through Sunday, at least 116 people were slain in Chicago, up from 40 during the same period in 2019. Wednesday morning, the crime scene in Gresham had been cleared such that a passerby might not know so many people had been shot the night before, except for a small ribbon of red police tape dangled in the weeds next to a light pole on Carpenter. Residents swept up the sidewalk. A TV station filmed an interview on the corner. 4 marked police SUVs drove slowly down Carpenter with their lights on and turned west onto 79th Street. Some residents wondered if the violence will ever stop and what police can do to make it happen. Kenneth Parker, vice president of a community advocacy group, watched the police cars pass. Quote, "It's not effective at all," Parker said. "I'm just saying, to put their lights on, what does that serve? It puts no fear in no one. The guys doing this stuff aren't out here. Who are they doing it for?" End quote. It's a pretty good point. I mean, if they had police presence there, they had 2 police cars there, and then a tactical team in the area, those guys were going to shoot one way or the other. I mean, the police presence didn't bother them one bit. I mean, can we not go anywhere anymore without somebody worrying about getting shot? This is really sad. And I remember, I don't know if anybody else is familiar with the backstory of the Candyman and the story of Cabrini Green and the little boy that was shot. I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head, while he was walking with his mother. And it was due to gang violence. And once that little boy was shot, those men, and I said men, called a truce, because that wasn't part of the deal. Once they killed that little kid, no, that did it. Someone actually confessed to that and was charged with it, and he took his charge like a man, because that wasn't his intention. He never meant to shoot the little boy, and I think he was quoted as saying something about, he couldn't live with himself if he hadn't have told that he did that. But that situation really shows the difference between the gangs previous and these gangs now. These gangs now are just ruthless punks. I mean, they're not even men. You can't even call these guys men. What man has a I'm just saying, I don't know the other situation about the 3-year-old. What parent has their kid out at a gas station doing Shady Boots business at 12:45 a.m.? That is just crazy. And on a weeknight, you know what I'm saying? Like, I could understand if you're coming from the fair or something on a weekend night, you had the kid out, doing something, but, man, come on. So, I don't know what the solution is. I honestly don't. I don't have one to offer. But something has got to change. These gangs are so out of control. So out of control. The gangs of past are no more. Because they wouldn't even tolerate no shit like this. There was a level of respect. And kids were off limits. Period. So, I mean, you can't even go to mourn your people once they pass away without worrying about somebody coming by and shooting up the funeral. That's sick, man. That is sick. I hope they catch every last one of them. There was another article on this same page that I found interesting. It wasn't about gun violence, but it was about drugs. And I wanted to take a look at it. I do want to say one more thing regarding that mass shooting. That 79th and Morgan, that is a GD block. So, that's the gang that's affiliated with that block, in case anybody was wondering. So that's GD territory. And also, that 79th or 74th and Stewart, where that Donnie gentleman was killed, is the area where Lil Mister and Rico Reckless are from. This was the other article that I found interesting. 22 charged in Westside drug bust. It was on the same page. It's wrote by Claire Howell. Law enforcement officers arrested almost 24 people in a drug sweep in the Humboldt Park neighborhood last week following a year-long sting investigation, according to federal prosecutors and court documents. Members of the group sold heroin and fentanyl-laced heroin to undercover agents in approximately 80 hand-to-hand exchanges totaling thousands of dollars, according to an affidavit filed by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration agent as part of the federal case against the group. In addition to 18 men charged in federal court with conspiring to distribute illegal narcotics, 4 other people appeared in state court on on other charges, according to a news release. Law enforcement officers shut down the open-air drug market located in the 1000 block of North Monticello Avenue, according to the release. Agents in the investigation, dubbed, quote, Operation Monticello's Revenge, end quote, estimate the operation sold at least 27.8 pounds of heroin and at least 57.3 pounds of heroin laced with fentanyl or synthetic fentanyl between February 2019 and November 2019. Heroin usually is sold in packets of less than 0.3 ounces, known as a blow, according to the affidavit, meaning that the drugs could have been sold in as almost 39,000 individual drug packets. Drug sales by the group generated approximately $7,200 daily, according to the complaint. Based on calls intercepted by law enforcement, Kelvin Franklin, 28, discussed exchanging $12,621 for heroin from August to October of 2019, the complaint said. Franklin and Sam Howard, 32, were the street-level managers of the organization, according to the complaint. They coordinated the operation's sales and personally sold illegal narcotics to undercover officers each over a dozen times. Franklin also tried to acquire a handgun for the Monticello Avenue drug market in October of 2019, the complaint said. Law enforcement officials seized the firearm after stopping a woman who was supposed to deliver the handgun for a broken taillight and a failure to make a complete stop at a stop sign. The handgun aspect of the probe remains under investigation. William Tate, 45, Mario Bonds, 37, and Antonio Lee, 39, were responsible for cutting the narcotics with additives and diluting substances, well as for repackaging the drugs in aluminum foil and baggies for distribution, according to the charges. The other 13 people charged in federal court are accused of serving as street-level traffickers for the operation. The 134-page complaint details numerous conversations recorded by undercover officers and intercepted phone calls during drug sales. Howard asked the undercover officers if they were the police during a sale in April of 2019, according to the complaint. Howard tested the officers by asking what kind of heroin the operation sells and how the drugs are usually packaged. An officer answered correctly and negotiated with Howard to buy 3 packs of heroin. In an October of 2019 text conversation between Franklin and Lee, Lee complained about not finding enough people who would work early in the morning. He told Franklin the drug market is, quote, a real-life job for me, end quote. There were approximately 2,424 narcotics-related local arrests, 227 firearm-related arrests, and 19,241 narcotics-related calls to the Chicago Police Department in the area around the Monticello Avenue drug market from January of 2017 to May of 2020, according to the complaint. Woo! Man. That's a lot. These guys are in some shit. The Howard name rang a bell only because of the Kanika case. But other than that, none of the names really jumped out at me. But yeah, that's crazy. I wanted to go back to ShotSpotter for just a second before I end this video. This article is from May the 3rd, 2018, and I want you to hear what they say about Chicago and the ShotSpotter coverage. Alright. It says Newark, California, May 3rd, 2018. ShotSpotter Inc., NASDAQ SSTI, the leader in gunshot detection solutions that help law enforcement officials identify, locate, and deter gun violence, today announced significant expansion within the city of Chicago, now blanketing the nation's third largest city with more than 100 square miles of coverage, up from 3 square miles in 2012. Chicago is the company's largest customer and one of more than 85 cities that use the ShotSpotter solution to help fight urban gun crime, including New York City, Oakland, Milwaukee, and Denver. Chicago saw shooting incidents drop more than 26% and gun-related homicides by 20% in the first 4 months of 2018, as compared to the same period in 2017. From February 2017 to April of 2018, the city is reporting 14 consecutive months of declining gun violence. District 7, Inglewood, was reported to have a 61% decline in shooting and homicide violence in its district to date since deploying ShotSpotter in March of 2017. The Chicago Police Department has stated that its success in reducing gun violence is largely due to the combination of ShotSpotter and the introduction of Strategic Decision Support Centers, SDSCs, in key districts. These centers use data-driven, evidence-based policing and feature ShotSpotter. Currently, the city has 11 SDSCs out of 22 districts using ShotSpotter. Quote, "The one technology that has made the most difference in Chicago's reduction in gun violence in the last 12 months has been ShotSpotter. It's a game changer," said Eddie Johnson, superintendent of the Chicago Police Department. "We are pleased with the progress made in the last year, but we plan to achieve even more. With our SDSCs and ShotSpotter, we want residents to feel safe and know we are ready to respond faster and predict where the next incident may occur." Using ShotSpotter, end quote. Using ShotSpotter, Chicago police receive instantaneous alerts of detected gunfire, enabling them to arrive at the precise location of a shooting event quickly. Instead of relying on a low rate of 911 calls, law enforcement can now respond in real time to aid victims, interview witnesses, and collect forensic evidence. This improves the overall effectiveness of the agency in identifying and apprehending shooters and taking illegal guns off the streets. It also reassures communities that law enforcement is there to serve them and helps to build bridges with local citizens. Chicago police have reported that they have recovered over 2,500 illegal guns in 2018 to date. Quote, "Chicago is an excellent example of how law enforcement is using ShotSpotter as a central element of a holistic program to reduce gun violence and improve relationships between law enforcement and the community," said Ralph Clark, president and CEO of ShotSpotter. "Data-driven policing leads to faster, more precise deployment of resources, as well as the ability to better deter and prevent gun violence," end quote. And goes on to say ShotSpotter is the leader in gunshot detection solutions that help law enforcement officers and security personnel identify, locate, and deter gun violence. It's based in Newark, California, and offers its solutions on an SaaS-based subscription model. Well, I hate to tell you, but ShotSpotter is not deterring violence anymore. It just seems like nothing is working. I don't know about the boots on the ground, I don't know about what the police are doing. I'm not there in that city to see it. All I can do is talk about what I've seen in videos and talk about what I read. I don't know what the solution is. I really don't. But I just wanted to, I guess, just bring awareness to the situation and let people know what's really going on in Chicago. And it is a mess. It is an absolute mess. It's terrible. It's just like nobody is safe. So I'm going to end this video here, but I appreciate each and every one of you for watching it. Thanks, guys.